So, now for our panel that we've called a sectoral perspective on skills in demand, the panel is going to explore some of the challenges relating to shortages in skilled trades and the need for innovative solutions. I'd like to invite the panelists to please come on up now. They're going to be introduced by our moderator for this panel, Mary Lawson, who's past member of the CAF board and past national president of the Canadian Home Builders Association. So welcome.
Well, good afternoon. I'm not a stranger to many of you. Both Cindy Oliver and I have had the privilege of participating in these conferences quite a number of times and certainly being at the podium. Today, I'm joined by four panelists: Rosemary Sparks from BuildForce Canada, Robert Larocque from Forest Products Association of Canada, Dennis Green from Go-To Tourism HR Society, and Serge Viola from Purolator, Inc. Welcome. They will be able to share sector-specific and employer perspectives around the demand for skilled trades workers. I'm Mary Lawson. I'm a home builder in Southern Ontario and a past member of the board of CAF and of the Canadian Home Builders Association. As a starting point, I wanted to provide for you some background and some context for today's panel. There is an interesting debate going on across Canada, as many of you are aware, questioning whether we're really experiencing skills shortages. For many, this is a theoretical discussion about job vacancies versus unemployment lines. On a practical level, what really matters is whether employers can find the right people with the skills that they need. When companies don't have these employees, they are forced to cut back production and turn down contracts, costing the economy billions of dollars, as we all know. The demographic crunch is a concern. Retirements within the baby boom generation will inevitably move many skilled and knowledgeable people right out of our workforce. A report by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce identifies skills shortages as a stop barrier to competitiveness. Many businesses project skills shortages if they aren't already feeling the crunch. According to a survey by the Canadian Council of Chief Executives, 73 out of 100 employers surveyed reported shortages are a huge concern to their industries. Several companies identified chronic shortages of qualified Red Seal journey persons in occupations such as carpenters, plumbers, mechanics, electricians, boiler makers, welders. The list goes on and on. These shortages are being experienced right across the country. Shortages among Western employers are well established, but what we're hearing is that the Atlantic employers are also very concerned about this issue. When asked about the greatest challenges facing Atlantic Canada in the next 5 years, 60% of small business in the region pointed to the shortage of labor. According to the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum survey, while more than 70% of employers in the skilled trades believe there will be a shortage of workers in the future, 25% say they have no strategy to address it. For many companies, growing shortages have become a key corporate risk. That's what we're here to talk about today. Our panelists will give us a better understanding of the scope of the challenge from their perspectives, and I hope some information about what's being done to address these concerns. Each of the panelists will give us a brief presentation, and then we'll follow with some discussion. I encourage you all to join in the discussion as the panelists' questions once all four panelists have presented their remarks. So to start the afternoon, I'd like to invite Rosemary, the Executive Director of BuildForce Canada, to give us some comments.
As soon as I got up here, the first thing I wanted to do was touch the microphones. So glad they have the little sticky here to remind me. Good afternoon. I'm really pleased to be here today to speak with you as part of this first panel to help set the stage for the really important discussions that I think you're going to be having over the next couple of days. I'm going to focus my remarks on why we need to keep our attention on the issues of construction skilled trades requirements and what will need to be done to sort of address some of those challenges. BuildForce Canada, formerly the Construction Sector Council, has been monitoring and forecasting the construction labor market for close to a decade now. And over that time, we have seen continuous and at times significant growth in construction activity. The construction industry currently represents about 7% of GDP. And if we take into consideration all of those other indirect effects, the GDP share would almost double to 12.5%. Making it one of Canada's largest industries. Today, close to 1 million people are directly employed in the construction, maintenance, installation, repair, and renovation of infrastructure ranging from industrial facilities to bridges and roadwork to single detached homes. And that infrastructure investment totals about $240 billion annually. Of that $240 billion, about $90 billion a year is devoted to oil and gas, mining, and utilities, the resource and energy-based sector of this country. And if we were to do the math and looked at that $90 billion over the next decade, that's close to $1 trillion in investment. It's the first time we've been able to use the T word since we've been doing forecasting in Canada, so it's a significant amount of investment. And it's not surprising that over the past many years that the resource and energy-based construction sector has been really driving construction forward. And at the same time as it's driving construction, it's driving other types of construction, including infrastructure, including commercial and industrial and residential construction, all respond and react to the amount of activity that's going on in this resource-based construction. And in addition to the demands that's putting on the construction workforce, we also have to think about the fact that for these past many years, we've been building things. And it's no wonder that once you've built these things, you kind of have to maintain them and sustain them. So that activity is, in fact, drawing on the same pool of skilled labor as new construction activity. So it's another pressure that's being put onto the workforce. So in Canada, what started out years ago as the Alberta oil sands phenomenon is now a coast-to-coast-to-coast phenomenon in Canada, when we have major resource and energy-based projects in just about every part of this country. But the devil's in the detail when we think about construction. You can't really look at construction story at the aggregate level. A lot of the issues and challenges that we're going to face are hidden at the 30,000-foot level. So it's important that we look down at the provincial, the regional, and the trade-specific level to really understand what those issues are that we're going to be facing. And I think that I can kind of illustrate this point by just looking at a few provinces across the country and seeing their unique circumstances. So we'll start in the far west with British Columbia. So is there anyone here from British Columbia? All right. So you're getting prepared for a pretty significant amount of activity, potentially in BC. Up in northern BC, we're going to have mining and LNGs and utilities. And the important message here is that the timing of that activity is going to have a lot to do with how severe the challenges will be. And in fact, if the timing goes in a certain way with those projects starting, you might be in direct competition with your neighbors to the east, Alberta, for the skilled trades workers. So that's BC's position. If we skip over to Saskatchewan, anyone from Saskatchewan? One person, okay. Saskatchewan has experienced the most staggering growth that we've seen in a long time over the last 8 to 10 years. And the challenge that Saskatchewan's going to face going forward is to keep the workers that they've managed to bring in as work begins to level off a little bit in Saskatchewan. But they're still going to need skilled trades workers to continue constructing and, more importantly, to sustain what they've built in Saskatchewan. So that's their sort of major challenge. And if we look at Ontario, we go to the north to the Ring of Fire, where we've got some significant mining activities and other resource-based construction, and a very small local workforce up in the north. And then we can contrast that against the Greater Toronto Area in Ontario, where construction is going to be everything from infrastructure to residential to utilities. And the challenge in Ontario is, are they going to be able to attract workers from other regions within the province to meet their demands as they require them? Will workers go north? Will they come to the GTA? So that's their sort of piece that they'll be looking at. And lastly, we'll go to the far east of this country and look at Newfoundland and Labrador. Anyone from Newfoundland and Labrador? All right, great. So here's the most unique story we have in construction. If you spend any time at the airport, you'll know that you're still going to see lots of those Newfoundland and Labrador folks heading out west to work in the Alberta oil sands. But the interesting part of that is that now, with the significant amount of work taking place there, there are workers being brought into Newfoundland and Labrador to work on their major projects. So a fairly unique circumstance when you have workers going west and people still being needed in the east. So this sort of paints the picture of the unique challenges and why we need to look at things from the provincial and regional levels to really get the understanding of what's going on. So in spite of this, some people might still ask, why do we need to be talking about labor market challenges when in the past construction has always managed to find the workforce that it required to meet demand? And I think what's different now is we need to connect some dots. We need to understand a few differences going forward that are going to have an impact on the situation. So the first dot I want to present to you, as I ever get going on my thing here. Sorry, I get so wrapped up in what I'm doing. I just want to go back here a minute. Okay. The first dot I want to talk about is employment growth and unemployment rates. So construction now employs 1.3 million people in the entire industry. That's 1 in 14 Canadians that are involved in construction. And this represents an 80% growth in employment over the last 15 years. So it's extremely important for us to understand that, that this growth has taken place already. So everything we talk about going forward is on top of an 80% growth in employment. Construction's continued growth comes at a time when our population is aging and a large segment of the workforce is about to retire. It's in this next 10 years that the baby boomers will be in their 60s and they will be looking to retire. And we're estimating that 235,000 workers are potentially going to leave the construction industry over this next 10-year period. This represents a significant loss of skills and experience to the industry. And this is creating real pressures on the industry as it looks out to replenish the workforce from a very shrinking pool. It's shrinking at the higher age level as people are aging and retiring, and it's shrinking at the younger ages in Canada because we have an incredibly low birth rate in Canada, with some of the provinces, particularly in the Atlantic, already in a negative birth rate situation. So we're drawing on a smaller pool. This growth and the aging demographic is resulting in a lower unemployment rate for construction. That seems like a bit of an odd thing. We should be sort of happy about lower unemployment rates. But the truth is that in construction, we're projecting that the construction industry is going to run at an annual average unemployment rate of about 7 to 8%, where typically in the past, the construction industry has run at about 10 to 12% unemployment, annual average unemployment. And what this means to the industry is that going forward, we're going to have less flexibility to manage those peak demands. We aren't necessarily going to be able to look to the unemployed construction worker to fill those demands. It will be very limited and likely will be in small areas and at certain points in time for certain trades that will be able to draw on unemployed construction workers. This slide that's up there right now speaks to Alberta. And in Alberta, in fact, the average annual unemployment rate has dipped well below the 7 to 8%. And so this takes all flexibility out of that labor market. The second dot that I want to speak to you about is mobility. The movement of workers across Canada is a traditional way that the construction industry has managed its workforce requirements. And as we look forward, with all of the projects across the country, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to rely on mobility to meet all of the requirements that we will have. There are just a great deal of projects in many parts of the country, and the timing of those projects will tell us whether there will be workers available or not to be moving to other parts to work. But the other more important question I think we have to ask right now is whether, in fact, the mobile workforce that we have that is now aging is still going to be interested in being mobile. And maybe a more important question might be, are the new young people that we recruit and bring into the industry going to be interested in working in remote areas away from their family and friends and urban centers? So these are questions that we don't know the answers to, but they are going to impact our ability to rely on mobility as a means to manage workforce requirements. The third dot I want to talk about is which trades are actually in demand and which skills are in demand. The major resource-based projects in Canada are requiring very specialized, highly skilled tradespeople. For example, we're talking about carpenters that have industrial scaffolding, and we're talking about bricklayers that have refractory experience, and welders that have specialized welding tickets. And these specializations and the highly skilled nature of the work that these people are doing is going to, I think, further reduce the flexibility in the workforce and the pool that they can draw from. The other thing we have to think about around the skills that are going to be leaving this industry is that as the industry replaces its retiring skilled workers, there's going to be a gap between those new inexperienced tradespeople that will be coming on board and the highly skilled and experienced tradespeople that will be leaving the industry. So we've got some challenges around the sort of specialization and the highly skilled nature of what work is being done. The fourth dot I want to talk about is global competition. Canada is certainly going to be competing for skilled workers domestically, but will also be competing globally. And what we understand is that the global construction activity is proposed to grow by 70% by 2025. So countries that typically might have been exporters of labor might now need their workers to stay home and do the work that they will have. And so we have to wonder if Canada will be able to, in fact, attract workers from other parts of the world to meet labor demands. And the fifth and final dot I want to talk about is one that I think is near and dear to the folks in this room, is really about the culture around careers in skilled trades. I think as we move into this next decade, we really need to think about whether we are in fact going to be able to attract young people who have had little or no exposure to construction and the skilled trades, and have actually grown up in a time when education and to some extent society has been streaming them towards a narrow definition of a knowledge-based economy jobs. Changing this culture has certainly begun, and there's evidence that views are beginning to change, but there's a great deal more to do if we're going to attract the number of individuals that the industries are going to require. So those are my dots, and given those dots, did we just switch? Oh, maybe just the French one showing up here now all of a sudden, but anyway. Given those dots, we need to think about what has to be done. And I think that the Canadian industry and policy makers are going to need to consider multiple strategies to meet short and long-term skilled labor requirements. And this is going to include attracting new workers from all available sources of labor, including women, Aboriginal people, and immigrants, in a very competitive job market. This means that we're going to have to shift those views of the young people and their influencers away from that narrow definition of knowledge-based jobs to a broader definition that is based on an understanding that construction and the skilled trades are very much a part of knowledge-based economy. We need the skilled trades to be plan A for young people, not plan B. Facilitating worker mobility will be something else that will be important to the industry. And it's going to necessitate monitoring the major projects that are taking place across the country and making sure that we understand when and where workers may be available. We need to ensure that we have a training system capacity that includes labor, employers, and government investment in training that will be sufficient to meet the demands to train the next generation of skilled workers. The construction industry relies, as you all know, on a variety of training approaches and vehicles through a variety of stakeholders to cover the broad spectrum of training needs, including technical skills, management and supervisory skills, mentoring skills, safety, and essential skills. This also needs to include ensuring that we have apprenticeship opportunities and employers that are willing to hire apprentices, and ensuring we are training people for the skills that will be required. We need to look at innovative new ways to improve productivity. And lastly, we need to implement short-term peak demand solutions, such as bringing workers from outside of the country to meet identified needs when we have exhausted all available sources of labor in Canada. We believe the challenges are real and will require a collaborative effort to ensure that construction industry has the sustainable, skilled workforce it's going to require to support construction investment in Canada. So the discussions that you're going to have over the next few days at this summit are a very important part of engaging with key stakeholders in the challenges that lay ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, Rosemary. Now I'd like to welcome Robert Larocque, who is the Director, Environment and Labor Market Policies for the Forest Products Association of Canada.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Very excited to be here today and talk about a forest industry and the need for our skilled trades workers. I'd like to take the opportunity to the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum for me to speak today. There we go. So I'll just start a little bit about who we are. So we employ about 50,000 people in the forestry and logging industry, where we log and transport the wood, and then we maintain and sustain our forest. And then that wood is brought to our wood products manufacturing facilities, where we employ about 100,000 people. And that's where we make the lumber and the plywood and the board sheets that are used by the construction industry. And then the residuals used at those facilities are then sent to our pulp and paper manufacturing industry, where we employ about 75,000 people. And that's where we make pulp, paper, newsprint, tissue, toilet and packaging that all of us use on a daily basis. So overall, we're about 240,000 workers across 240 rural communities across Canada, all the way from Vancouver Island to Newfoundland. The forest industry had a rough time during the recession, but we bounced back. And in 2012, we launched Vision 2020 with 3 very specific goals. Our first one was to increase our revenue by $20 billion from 2010 to 2020, and we're a $54 billion industry, by new innovation and new markets. Our second goal was to improve our environmental performance by 35%. But the third one, and this is why I'm here today, is we need to renew our workforce by 60,000 new recruits between 2010 and 2020, including women, Aboriginals, and new Canadians. That goal is going to be extremely hard to achieve. Who do we hire? We hire a wide variety of positions. More than 90% of our jobs are well-paying full-time positions. We have all kinds of different jobs that we separated, more than 50 jobs in 4 groups: the skilled trades, the sciences, the corporate jobs, and woodlands and operations. Of note, 25% of our workforce of 60,000 people are skilled trades. So they're very, very, very important to our sector. An interesting fact, we also hire hundreds of apprentices and interns every term, so thousands per year. And we're pretty proud. We have a 95% apprenticeship rate in our sector, much higher than the national average of around 50%. But we need to do more. The types of apprentice or skilled trades that we hire, they all vary. Electricians, instrument technicians, millwrights, mechanics. They're all well-paying, high-skilled trades. And last winter, we did a study because we kept getting the same thing as Rosemary was speaking. Do we really have a labor shortage? Do we have a skilled force? And we did a study on a very specific week. We just picked middle week of October, and we looked at it. And we had more than 250 jobs across the country open to be hired in the skilled trades. So we do have a need for skilled trades right now. And then what was interesting in that study is we did the same study 3 to 4 months later. and we looked at what jobs were we able to fill in that period. And 75% of the skilled trade jobs that were posted, we were not able to fill. So after 4 months of trying to fill those jobs across the country, we're still not able to fill them. And that continues as we speak, and it's going to get worse. So the point is for us, for the forest sector, is that we do have skilled trade jobs open now, and we do need to fill them. But how are we going to get that? So one of the things we realized is that coming out of the recession, we need to inform people about our sector again, now that we stabilize and we're transforming in innovation. So in February 2013, we launched the Greenest Workforce. It's a website that provides real-time career page and real-time job offers, and we tweet and Facebook and all that. It also provides a career kit that we submitted to all of the high schools and colleges across the country. We provide information about the types of jobs that we're looking for and some information on amount that we're looking for. There's also lots of videos, brochures that are on that website. But also we need to continuously improve our information to all of the Canadians. So we launched about 2 weeks ago a new campaign called Life is Better Here, where we're trying to inform Canadians, and Rosemary was talking about people flying to the oil sands and whatever, that you can come to work in the forest industry and you can go home at night and you can have fun and have a well-paying jobs. We're also providing some information about cost comparison. It's a neat little tool now that if you're looking to come and work in the forest industry, you can compare your salary in a forest community compared to somewhere else in Canada and see how much money you could be saving if you work into our sector. So we're just trying to be a little bit different, to reach out and inform Canadians about the opportunities in the forest sector. But it's not just about information and communication. Another thing that we've recently started to do is improve our best practices into our facilities. So a lot of our companies are right now starting to implement some best practices to attract, to hire, and to retain employees. And we're focusing them on women, Aboriginal, skilled trades, and new Canadians. So some of those are like monetary best practices. For example, we have companies that are providing paid leave to do volunteer work. Some are not monetary, which is pretty interesting in skilled trades. We'll have flexibility hours, or we'll do job sharing, where someone will work half a shift, and then another person will work the other half shift to allow for babysitting and daycare arrangements. We do a lot more partnerships today than we did 4 years ago with provincial, federal governments, as well with academics on what type of training we need and how we can work together to maximize. And we also have some very specific best practices. We have some apprenticeship program for Aboriginal, for example, that we've started out west, which are working really well. So in conclusion, we do employ about 60,000 skilled trades, and we'll need to replace about 15,000 of them between 2010 and 2020. There is no silver bullet. We've looked at, wow, we wish we can put one program with skilled trades. We've talked with a lot of different people and it will be solved, but it doesn't happen that way. We need better collaboration with our academic and institutions. We need better collaboration with the federal government to make sure that the programs are efficient. And we also need better collaboration with the employers, our unions, our counterparts. But I do believe that, and that's why I'm going to be here for the next 3 days, that if we all start working together and finding creative solutions, that we at the forest product sector will be able to meet our goal and hire 50,000 skilled trades by 2020. Thank you.
That's fascinating. Thank you, Robert. And now Dennis Green, the Senior Manager of Industry Training for Go-To Tourism HR Society. So we're looking at a totally different industry.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to be here in Ottawa. I am a Red Seal cook by trade, so it was just a coincidence that the Culinary Federation had their national conference in Ottawa this same week. So I've been here for 3 or 4 days already. It's a fabulous, fabulous city. In terms of our sector, we are a provincial organization, so you're going to get more of a BC perspective, but we do have some national information to share with you. In terms of who we are, Go2HR is BC's tourism human resource association, and we've been around for 35 years, since 1979. And our main mission in life is to coordinate the tourism labor market strategy for our province and help our industry find good people, keep them, train them, and support them in all their HR needs. We do that through a number of initiatives. We're actually not a membership-based organization. Our members are other industry associations, and most of our revenue comes from delivering services. So we are the sole deliverer of our provincial responsible beverage service program, Serving It Right. We also deliver our provincial food safety program, Food Safe by Correspondence, and then we have some key strategic partnerships with other government agencies, one with the Industry Training Authority to coordinate the apprenticeship mandate for the tourism and hospitality sector, another one with WorkSafe BC as our provincial health and safety association. So we have our fingers in a lot of pies, and it's all around people and helping the industry develop its needs. Our role, as I said, is to help people find good people, train them well, and keep them in the industry. And we do that through a lot of well-conducted labor market research, really regional information, connecting with our industry, getting out there and finding out what's going on in every part of our province, and really understanding what the regional needs are and how that all works. And we've always taken a real approach to coordinate and collaborate with everybody in terms of the way we get things done. In terms of the labor market picture, lost our, okay, let's go back. The national labor market picture for tourism and hospitality is 500,000 jobs between 2010 and 2020. That's pretty even mix between people leaving the industry because of attrition, and also growth in the industry, new restaurants, new hotels, and all those things being built. You can see on the national picture about 60% of that demand is in the food and beverage sector. BC is a slightly different picture. We represent about 20% of that growth, 100,000 jobs, a little over 100,000 in BC by 2020. And we have a little bit more of a balance in our product in terms of we have less food and beverage because we have more attractions, more resorts, more accommodation. But at the end of the day, food and beverage is still our biggest sector. And when you look at the demand we have in occupations, 4 of our top 5 occupations that we're experiencing demand in are all in the food and beverage sector. We have a mix of skilled and unskilled labor. We have a lot of entry-level jobs, and for people just entering the workforce for the first time, and a lot of those people will go work in as food counter attendants and kitchen helpers and get their feet wet in the back of the house, or go and work as a server or bartender, or work the front desk of a hotel. But we do have a lot of skilled labor as well, our number one being their chefs and cooks. We have a need for 10,000 cooks in BC in the 10-year period between 2010 and 2020. And we train a lot of cooks, but still not enough. In terms of shortages, in terms of we look at the number of people coming into the occupations versus the number of people we're actually training and where they're going. A slightly different picture, but you can still see that chefs and cooks, we're still short 1,000 cooks in that 10-year period. So that translates into about 100 more cooks, professionally trained cooks every year that we need to fill the demand that's coming into our sector. The interesting thing to note, we've talked a lot about other sectors and the oil sands and things like that. All of our labor market projections and research are on our sector. We're talking about hotels, restaurants, and things like that. We haven't included in these forecasts the demand that's being, the number of cooks that are being recruited to go work at camps and lodges, or going work at hospitals and extended care facilities. And we're just getting that information back. I can't give you a hard number because it is based on labor market data that's being embargoed by our provincial government. They're just finalizing it. But we figure about 15% more than what we need in terms of the number of cooks to supply the other sectors, between those that are going to work in remote camp facilities and also to service the healthcare sector. So, how do we deal with this? I mean, I think the important thing is that our number one priority is helping our industry become better employers and keep the people that they have. And those are things that, we have a lot of people that come into our industry. Food Network does a great job of promoting the restaurant industry as being sexy, but we have a lot of people that come in on their way to other things, and they stay there for a little while and they move on. We can train more people. And training is, formal training, but also informal training, supporting people with developing good training programs in-house. And raise awareness about tourism careers. We're doing a lot of focus now on letting people know, hey, you know what, if you're only going to be with us for a few years while you pay your way through university to be an engineer, great. We still want you for those 5 years, and you know what, you can graduate debt-free, take some burden off your parents, not graduate with a big student debt, and have a lot of fun, and some of those people are going to stick with us. We can always work on productivity. If we train people better, we could get them to do more with less, and they could be more efficient in their work. That's always a way to address our challenges. And then we get into the recruitment section. Everybody's talked about looking at different markets. We've got a pretty fair balance in terms of women in our industry. That's not a high market for us in terms of new recruitment, but we are looking at different markets. We have 38% of our workforce is under 25. We're the #1 employer of youth. Over half the country gets their first job in our sector, and that market is shrinking. We've got 40% less students in elementary school than we do in secondary school this year, and so it's going to get worse for us before it gets better. And the labor market, the shift between the people exiting the workforce and new bodies entering the workforce is widening. So we're actually starting to target that baby boomer generation and say, hey, if you're looking to do something and have a little fun, why don't you turn your hobby into some income? You want to be a golf course marshal, and people going out to be fishing guides that have liked to fish. We're recruiting that market actively and saying these are different ways that you can sort of turn your passion into jobs. And we always have to look outside our borders. I mean, we want to be strategic about how we recruit, and we want to make sure that people in the community, if there's a job opportunity in the community, the people that live in that community have the first crack at the job. But if there aren't people in that community that want that work, how do we migrate people from other parts of the province and give them the training they need to get them into those jobs? How do we get people from the rest of Canada moving into those jobs if they're needed? And I will say the F word if we need to. We have to look outside our borders to look at foreign talent in certain areas. It's really important. But I think it's a piece of the puzzle, and I think we can focus sometimes too much that's the strategy. And I think for us, it's the last thing. It's the last place we go because it's the most complicated to do it well, to be honest. In terms of what we've done, I think we have, in 2007, we did take on a mandate with our provincial apprenticeship agency, the Industry Training Authority, to work with them as a designated industry training organization looking after our sector as really a part of our demand-driven system. In really, if training is not providing what industry is looking for in terms of training and certification, industry's not engaged. So the decisions at that point was to help industry engage the system and make that a big part of how we're looking at our programs moving forward. We did that. We started updating all of our programs and all of our standards across the trade areas that we have. We have the cook, baking, and meat cutting programs that we look after, and made sure we had updated content and updated curriculum and learning resources, all those things. We also started looking at the pathways to certification and saying, is the certification we're delivering really what industry is looking for? And we talked about completion rates. We had very low completion rates in terms of people going through that are taking culinary training and actually getting into an apprenticeship and getting to their red seal. And we started looking at it. What we were finding is that people were finding that first 2 semesters of culinary school was giving them enough to work in the workforce in about 80% of our jobs. So there wasn't a real impetus to actually move on because the training that they were being delivered was suiting their needs. The certification just wasn't aligned with it. So we looked at our program, and what we did in BC is we took our 3 levels of apprenticeship training and articulated with all of the colleges that were delivering culinary arts and restructured our program to offer 3 levels of certification, which do culminate in the Red Seal for those that complete their Professional Cook 3. But we have 1,000 people a year that start training as Professional Cook 1s, and 600 of those people get certified every year as Professional Cook 1s. And only about 50% of them choose to move on to become a level 2 cook, and then some of those move on to become Red Seal cooks. So it gives us a much better picture of where everybody's working, and also aligning the training and making good training decisions and helping our government make good funding decisions about where they need to invest in training. A big thing we've really focused on is being innovative in training and assessment delivery. It's been there's been a couple of national projects that were on the strengthening the Red Seal program that I know we were really involved with at the beginning. We really worked hard in BC. It's at some blended learning approaches and looking at some different ways to deliver training for our industry. And one of the things we've been working on this year, which has been really, really exciting for us, is actually leveraging existing training we have, but creating a mechanism, a platform to really assess the skill of somebody who's gained their experience out in the workforce, and identify what the gaps are to get them to one of our certifications. And then by matching that with a blended learning model, which can include some online training, some face-to-face training, some training that's delivered in their workplace, they can actually understand exactly what everybody's individual learning plan is to get them to that next step, and be able to get them to that level, because the training is not always the same for everybody, and a lot of the time what we find is we have people with vertical gaps. They've spent 20 years in the industry, they've never cooked breakfast, never baked a muffin. So going to level 1 apprenticeship training and learn a little bit of everything doesn't satisfy their need. They need to focus on one specific area of competency. So we're working a lot on that. We're also looking at mentorship and sponsorship, and how can we as an industry association, we're not a heavily unionized industry, but we see the value that a lot of the joint boards and training committees have done in the organized labor sector, and we're trying to start working now with our industry associations, with our Chefs Association, the Baking Association, with the Meat Cutters Association, and us as an industry association, and say, can we look at a group sponsorship model where we're willing to help work with you, the certified tradespeople, to take care of some of those people that are out there working a few different part-time jobs, not getting traction anywhere long enough to do a full apprenticeship, but really mentor our next generation of junior members through to certification as a group. So that's something we're working on right now. I think what we've really seen from all these initiatives is improved success in the programs. In BC, the pass rate on the Red Seal exam for cooks has jumped 17% since 2008. We used to be 7% below the national average in terms of how our level 3 apprentices fared when writing the IP exam, and we're now about 10% higher than the national average. So we've seen huge movement there. We've also seen a huge improvement in the number of certifications. 2006, we had 106 Red Seals for cook. Last year, we had 161. It's been as high as 220 in some of the years in between. But we've also issued almost 1,000 certifications a year in cooking between all of the levels of programming that are offered out there. So we've seen a huge engagement from industry and really valuing the work that's being done, and we see that continuing. And the best part in terms of the efficiency piece for government is we've done all of that without asking the government to invest any more money in culinary training. And in our trade sector, the training envelope has stayed the same. We're just focusing the training and the government spend on training exactly where it needs to be. In terms of moving forward, I think the most important things is, collaboration, innovation, and cooperation are things that I think really work. We're in a global economy. Growth for our whole economy is based on all of the sectors doing well. So yes, it's great that we want to expand oil and gas, but those people have to eat. They have to stay somewhere. They have to get their cars fixed. They need haircuts. We need to make that happen, and flying people in and out of communities does not help build strong communities. And what we'd like to see is people building communities and a diverse economy, which at the end of the day gives us a lot more sustainability in the long run for us as a country. And this country is, the best place to work, live, and play, and we want to keep it that way. So, unfortunately, in the last month or so, our provincial government did make some new decisions, and they are going to be taking a lot of the work we've been doing back in-house. But like I said, we've been around for 35 years. And we are going to continue to be there to support our industry, and we welcome any opportunities to collaborate with other industries in terms of sharing best practices and working on common goals and building the same kinds of strategies that we found really effective in your industry. So, want to visit our website? You can poke around, and otherwise, I'll be around for a couple of days. I have to fly back to BC Tuesday morning, so I'm going to miss the last day of the conference, but I will be here for the rest of today and all day tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dennis. And last but not least, Serge Viola, who is the Director of Asset Management at Purolator, Inc. Serge?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I've got some time left. I'm not sure how much time I've got left. I think they've used it all up. This is Thinking back in my career, I started off as an apprentice many years ago. So it's kind of funny coming out today and talking about apprenticeships and the shortage of technicians and apprentices today, when in the past there was probably a surplus, but today there's not. So I'll start off with who Purolator is, what they do, and how we affect it through fleet and facilities. That's what I look after. I look after the fleet side, the facilities, and the MHE, which is the material handling equipment, which is the automated hubs, the manual processing for packages. The skills trades would affect those areas, in my area anyway, and how we address those challenges. First off, for those who don't know, Purolator is Canada's leading courier company, freight parts and logistics solutions provider. We're fully Canadian-owned, 91% by Canada Post. There is a minority shareholder, and the rest is owned by the employees through a stock option plan. We're a leader in customer goods by ground and air anywhere in the world. We do that through partnerships with other companies. We don't operate a fleet or facilities anywhere else in the world, strictly in Canada, but we do cover the globe. We have 125 retail shipping centers across the country, 260 Purolator drop boxes, 330 Staples locations where we do have a shipping outlet within a third party, 135 shipping terminals, 12,000 employees, and 3,500 are couriers, and 1.4 million pieces per day between pickup and delivery. So we fulfill 1.4 million promises to our customers every day. We don't really build a product, we don't deliver a product, we just deliver a service. We have same-day service, next-day delivery within Canada to most priorities by 9 a.m., 10:30, and end of day. We do have an evening service that we just started, and that's to address the purchase program that's on the internet shopping. Purolator ground delivery, 2 days plus, coast to coast, and a Saturday service as well. We have an extended LTL service, which we started about 5 years ago, and we have what we call a Purolator International division that operates out of the U.S. into Canada. So the fleet that my group is responsible for is over 5,000 vehicles. 3,100 are pickup and delivery vehicles. Out of that 3,100, 550 are hybrid electric vehicles. So the automotive trade, the skilled technicians that we have today, need a specialized training. There's high voltage batteries on these vehicles, a lot of electrical systems that weren't there a few years ago. It's evolving every day. The hybrid provider for this vehicle actually went bankrupt 2 years ago. We went the extra mile 2 years ago, and we trained all of these technicians on the hybrid system. Luckily, we did that, because today we actually operate those vehicles across the country through our technicians and the original OEM suppliers of those parts. If we didn't do that, those vehicles wouldn't be on the road today. 170 medium trucks, 1,200 trailers, 500 tractors. We also have 23 dedicated chartered aircraft. Our group doesn't look after that. That's all handled through a third party. And we do service the ground support equipment at the airport location. So we handle the loaders, the de-icers, the tugs, those types of things. On the facility side, we have 4 national hubs with automated package handling systems, which we look after, 12 air ramps for the ground support equipment, like I said, 135 terminals, and we have 47 in-house Purolator garages across the country. On the skilled trade side, we have 179 fleet mechanics technicians. We have not been fully staffed, I'd say, in the past 4.5 to 5 years. We found it very difficult that as technicians retire or leave the organization, we're having a hard time finding replacements. We did start an apprenticeship program 4 years ago. We've had about nine apprentices across the country today. They're getting ready to write their license, they're graduating. Some of those came from within the corporation, either came off the dock as a dock handler or as a truck driver. 27 millwrights handling the automated sorting equipment. Again, we're using people from within the company. We're training them, putting them through an apprenticeship program, starting to do that. We have hired millwrights right out of the industry in the past. 5 electricians, 4 automation technicians for the automated systems, and 20 general building staff. The facilities themselves, we don't maintain the facilities. That's handled through a third-party provider. We do look after the fleet because that's a core item for our industry, and we look after the automated sorting equipment. The challenges we're seeing is we're having an aging workforce like every other corporation. There's an awful lot of long tendency within the corporation. People are starting to leave. They're actually leaving earlier than 65. You're getting some people leaving at 55 to 60, finding something else to do, or they're just in sound financial shape that they can actually retire earlier. Geographical demand, like everybody else, we're seeing a lot of issues in Edmonton. People going to the oil sands for more money. We're seeing it in the Atlantic, where a lot of people are transiting to the west, and the rates are starting to go up. Training apprentices for other companies. We're seeing a bit of that. We're seeing some poaching from other companies, not a lot, but we're seeing a little bit of that, especially from other fleets. Competition with other fleets and dealerships, especially in the West, where the rates are all over the map. We're paying $37 an hour for heavy-duty technician. People are paying as much as $50, $55. Competition with other career opportunities within the industry. Not every young student today wants to be a mechanic. They're looking at other trades, looking at electricians, they're looking at millwrights. What's the opportunity they want to get into? And the perception of skilled trades and careers. What is that perception out there, especially in the high schools and the colleges today? We need to be out there talking about our careers, talking about our companies, and promoting it as a career. So apprenticeship programs, we're trying to enhance it. We're trying to process it across the country. We've actually gone into the colleges, talked to the students. We're looking at ways to promote it, promote the company, and saying, come to Purolator. Not only can you start off as a technician or an apprentice if you want to, you can move around the company, you can go into operations if you want, you can go into management, you can go into all different things. Innovation, what we're finding with some of our younger apprentices today, they really like the new technology we're getting into. They like the hybrids, they like the electrical vehicles. They want to stay current and they want the training on it, so we're helping them with that. And it's actually generated a lot of interest. The younger generation today wants to see a greener fleet. They want to be part of it. And they want to see a greener tomorrow. So I think that's helped attract students to our industry. Cross-training, and we do a lot of that with our current technicians to the apprentices. It does take time away from productivity with our current technician. We understand that, but we need to do that if we're going to actually build that for the future. Focusing on the licensed skills we really need. There's sometimes on the facility side and the MHE side, we don't always need a licensed millwright to work on some of this equipment, so we're looking at different opportunities there as well. So is there less of a license that we can put in a position versus a fully licensed technician? And again, we're going to partner with educational assistance institutions. We've actually partnered with a couple of high schools. We're looking at co-op programs, bringing students in at the high school level, getting them interested in automotive, and hopefully making that a career path in the future for them. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. Well, the time has come to involve the audience in some of this conversation. I think we've set the stage for the next few days, but I would welcome, we have time for some questions. There are microphones at both ends of the room, so I would ask you to go to a microphone and please identify yourself and perhaps what industry you're in, just to give us some context. But I don't see a lineup yet. Anyone like to start the questions? Aha, I should have known.
Pat Blackwood, Ontario College of Trades. With the apprentices that you have in your sector, whether it be construction, forestry, Purolator, hospitality, probably get the most women apprentices in hospitality. How many women do you have in your group on a percentage basis, apprentices?
Ours are about 50-50, except for the meat cutting trade, but culinary and baking are both about 50-50. So I think the baking may actually be more women than men in it, but it's pretty close to 50-50 for us. So like I said, it's not an area that we're really focusing on needing to find more in terms of women, but I'll let the others speak.
We haven't seen any apply. We've had one female technician in Edmonton, actually. I think she lasted about 5 years, and then she moved on to something else. But it's not an industry you see a lot of women in.
That one's alive. For forestry, we're around 15%, 1.5.
15, that's very good.
So Pat, here's the sad story. In construction, women, although the absolute numbers of women have increased, the percentage has stayed relatively the same at around 4 or 5%, depending on the trade. So growth in numbers, but not growth in proportion. So I mentioned earlier that our industry had grown in employment by 80%. The number of women has grown by something like 1%.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And just on the apprenticeship program, again, the key to this conference and the key to the future of Canada really is a vibrant apprenticeship program. And it's not something you can just have one shot at. Like, I don't know if that's what you meant by the Purolators. You had some for 4 years ago, and now you're pretty well out of the program. It has to be an ongoing process, ongoing program. It keeps your costs down, and it also keeps people interested. And the other thing is, you're right about the comments you made about the apprentices wanting the technology in that, because it does bring the technology into your facility, and they actually help train the journey people on that new technology, and it really raises their game. So we have to really try and get the apprentices into our programs and get the apprentices into our places, and we still have a problem with 80% of employers not apprenticing, so that's the problem. So we have to get to the other employers to become part of the solution. That would help. Thank you.
Over here.
I was just wondering if any one of you could comment on some maybe unique or interesting partnerships that you've got going with colleges, whether in any part of the country. And a follow-up to that too is, maybe not a follow-up, separate question, just your sector's experience with employees, essential skills, math, science, literacy, those kinds of things. Like in terms of attracting people, is your sector doing anything to help in those areas, maybe with some of the people you're hiring? Or is that an issue at all?
Could I just ask you to identify
Oh, my name's
sector?
Chris Hahn. I work at Algonquin College here in Ottawa in construction trades.
Thank you. Would one of you like to?
I'll speak, maybe say something about the essential skills part of your question. I think it's absolutely critical, and I think that there are numerous initiatives within the construction industry around the whole issue of essential skills and how important that is, not just to the successful completion of their apprenticeship, but also to the successful work experience as well. So I know that in our industry, we put a great deal of importance in essential skills materials that are authentic to the industry. So they are based on construction activities and are very closely aligned with what they will actually be using that information for. So I think there's a fair bit being done. I think construction is I think, pretty enlightened about the whole importance of essential skills, but there's obviously always more to do in that area.
Maybe I'll just try to answer your question from innovation stuff we're doing with the colleges. From a labor market perspective, for example, we partner up with colleges and universities about 2 years ago, and we're currently working right now to improve the labor market information between all of the forestry sector and the colleges. So we will know, in certain part in Norton, BC, we will need 15 forestry technicians in 2 years. So the two of us working together, we can work that and then have the apprentice come in and making sure that the students are aware so they can go into that kind of training. Another thing we're doing also is on innovation. Our sector is transforming. We're getting a lot more into bioproducts, bioenergy, and we feel that we had a very good relationship with the universities on the R&D, but not with the colleges. And we realized that we will need those people to maintain all of those new technologies in the future. So we started a partnership through ACCC with universities where the forest sector, the colleges, we're all working on the same new innovation and R&D together. So when the new technologies are ready to be implemented in a mill, the technician side and the sciences side engineers, for example, are going in together.
The only thing we're doing with the colleges would be with Centennial College, and we're looking at their Volvo MAC program, because we do operate Volvo tractors. We're looking at bringing students in on a work program, see how they like to shop, see how they like the environment. Is that what they want to do? Do they want to work for a dealership, or do they want to work for a fleet? Because there are some differences. So we're helping them with that. We're also looking at working with them on the hybrid side. What kind of training do we need on the hybrid side? Because that is a new technology that's coming out today. It's evolving. There is some safeguards you need to do, especially around high voltage batteries. So we're working on it with that.
And I think the biggest impact I think we've seen in terms of being innovative with the college system is we get all of our training providers together and make sure that everybody's on the same page with things. So we have 16 providers that deliver culinary training in British Columbia, plus 25 high schools. Everybody's on a common curriculum, everybody's on the same learning resources, and everybody's working towards, everybody writes the same written exam when they complete their program, and everybody does the same standardized practical evaluation when they complete their program. So we spent a lot of time with all of our training partners in developing those things so that they feel a sense of ownership, and also that they contribute to the ongoing maintenance of them. The biggest challenge, those of you that work in the college system, as you know, is you get the big colleges. If you look at proportionally, everybody has a small piece set aside for curriculum development or learning resource development. Now, if you're in a big college, that could be a lot of money. If you're a small college, it could be a few $100. So, and you have to do the same work. You've given a course outlined by your provincial government, or you're working towards an NOA, and you have to develop all this material to support that one program. I think where we've tried to get people together is, okay, let's get everybody at the table. Everybody give their curriculum development time to making sure that the exam bank is really solid, or making sure that we have good learning resources, and parcel that up and getting people to do that. I think that's great. We're really just this year starting to get into collaborative delivery. We are trying to expand our meat cutting program. We have one training provider in Kamloops, but most of our meat cutters live in the Lower Mainland, and it's a challenge to get people to go up to take their apprenticeship training. So what we're trying to get off the ground this year is, because the college in Kamloops does all of their theory training and all of their marking online through Moodle anyway, that we're looking at, can we set up a model where people will do their theory and their testing through the institution, but they'll get their practical classes at a different college in Vancouver, one of our culinary programs that has a really good meat cutting lab. And we're just in the early days of setting that up, but there's a lot of interest from both parties in collaborating with that. And I think those are strategies I think that's going to make it effective.
Another question?
Hi, I'm Ron Kurtz from the Take Back Manufacturing Forum, and I have two questions. The first is, I noticed that a couple of you guys admitted that you are tradespeople to this forum. And I just wondered how that played as a factor in your gaining and currently having a leadership position in your profession.
That had a bit to do with it. It wasn't the whole reason why we got into the apprenticeship program. We got into it because we're having a hard time finding qualified technicians today. So we needed to groom our own technicians for the future. We operate, like I said before, 47 shops across the country, 179 technicians. We operate everything from a 25 technician shop to a 1 technician shop. It makes it very difficult to put an apprentice in with just 1 mechanic because of the training and the things you can do safely without inspection. So we need to monitor that very, very closely. We do, and we also operate a day shift and an afternoon shift. We have multiple shifts at locations, so it makes it very difficult to bring on a lot of technicians in certain shops. But we need to look at the places where we can do that and have the bench strength in the future to move these people around. So that's one of the reasons why we did it.
Well, my question was, how has your trade background helped you in your position now as a leader in your industry?
I think it's promoted I guess the career progression for these guys. So we actually, when we go out to the schools and we're meeting with the technicians at Centennial College, for example, you'll talk about, you can come in as an apprentice, you can work your way up to a mechanic, you can be a heavy truck mechanic, a team leader, a foreman, a regional fleet manager, or a director. You can go as high as you want within your career, but you got to have that drive. So I think it's helped me promote that with these individuals.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, I mean, apprenticeship is a huge thing for us in terms of our, we're trying to do in our sector is really promote the idea that there's, you know, your career path goes all the way from you know, your first job as a dishwasher to owning the restaurant. There's a whole bunch of things that come in between, and really trying to support people in get traction on apprenticeship. I think where we've seen the most growth is our chain restaurants have really embraced it. We're seeing a lot of growth there, where we're seeing restaurant chains that are seeing very strategically that, hey, we need to have all of our kitchen managers, get them up to the Red Seal level, even though the workforce, the type of cooking we're doing is not a lot from scratch, but we want to have that talent in our kitchen. It's a way to sort of, it's a way for them to push their menu into new areas by having better skills and better knowledge, and they've really embraced that. So we see a lot of competition. I would say that our top 3 apprentice sponsors in British Columbia are chain restaurant chains, and they're doing a very effective job of it. And I think where we have challenge is making sure that we have a system that works for everybody, because we have a lot of people at the student level that are interested in the apprenticeship, and a lot of times the employer is coming up with a barrier that either the structure of the training doesn't work, the block release model doesn't work for them, or there are other ways they can do it. They want to support them, but they're not sure what they can do. So that's where we're trying to work a little bit more collaboratively and take the people that are really doing a good job of it and helping them teach the other. The mentorship isn't about only the apprentice, it's about mentoring the other employers about the value of apprenticeship and how important that is. And at the end of the day, that's where it has to come from, I think, if we're going to get traction. But even so, proportionally, the number of certified cooks compared with the number of restaurants in this country, I mean, it's shockingly small. I think right. you would all venture to say that, and I know we do have a fair amount of frustration with our professional association in terms of they're frustrated at that number, because a lot of the people in our professional, everybody that joins the Chefs Association, you have to have a ticket to get in. It could be a ticket from Europe, but you have to have a ticket to get in. And people that have, so you've got a whole bunch of people around the table who have really all spent their whole lives supporting apprenticeship and really trying to say, how can we leverage? And the challenge we have is that we don't have that same kind of engagement from the restaurant ownership side, from the restaurant association in that being as much as a mandate. So.
Well, what I've noticed from your presentation is that you've really created an integrated learning progression where you've established 3 grades of learning, and you qualify people to come into the system and give them credit for their experience, so they reduces the amount of effort they have to put into it, and then you progress them through, and they can get first or second or third class in culinary and get their certification. But I'm just trying to make the point that tradespeople end up becoming our leaders in our industry, and we have 2 people and maybe more on the podium here that have expressed that. Our leadership comes from the trades. And if you look at manufacturing in Ontario, you look at the large companies and the medium-sized companies we have now in the province. Most of these came from the trades, or skilled technicians, technologists, engineers in the trades. So that's the point I was making. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions on the floor? Oh, yes.
Hello, my name is Gina Gazongi Simon. I'm a First Nations woman from Wikwemikong. I'm also been recruited by the Canadian Union of Skilled Workers, and I'm in my 3rd year as a construction maintenance electrician, and this opportunity has changed my entire life. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to have that apprenticeship. And I'm currently working with Ontario Hydro. And I just wanted to ask, when you talk about building relationships with First Nations people, I'd like to know, what are your best practice models in developing that relationship, especially as it relates to revenue sharing with First Nations communities? But also in my experience, just a little over 3 years now, there really requires a need in this society for a change of attitude towards women in the workforce and women in the trades, big time. And I would liken it to a teaching of, that we're told by our elders that we represent like an eagle, and we're grounded right now. We have no foresight because we are all made up of our mothers and fathers. So therefore we are all male and female. And we all have a male and female wing. And right now what's happening is our eagle's grounded because the only wing that's flapping is the male. And until our women and the power and the skills and the ingenuity of the women is resurrected and accepted and brought forward at a level, then only then will we soar. And so I'd like to know what sort of innovative ideas you're doing to address single women with children, because they don't want to go far from their home, but they still want to put food on the table. You get a woman to work for you, she's going to pick up every nut and bolt that falls on that ground. She's going to make sure that that oil, when you're grinding, goes a long way, because she knows what it takes to put food on the table for her babies. So I'd just like to know, what are you doing to address single mothers who want to enter the workforce and best practices for revenue sharing with First Nations communities? Thank you.
Do we have any comments? Go ahead.
As I said, our sector's got a pretty good balance of women in it, so that's not a challenge for us. But what is I find it very interesting looking at our sector is you find that different subsectors, the balance is very different. There are far more, I find far more women working in catering and in the institutional care and a lot of those things where it's a bit more of a static schedule and it works better for people that are raising families. And you'll find very few women that are flying in to work in camps to do that work. So it does change sort of in the subsector, but overall I think we do have different opportunities for people and try and make people find a good fit. As far as the Aboriginal community side, I think that's an area we've worked really closely with over the years. We have my advisory committee for the Cook program has two Aboriginal folks on it that are really tied into their communities. And we've done a lot of projects with getting training into communities. And I think the thing that I've noticed more than anything, my biggest takeaway in working with Aboriginal communities is as a whole, in British Columbia, I won't speak for the rest of the country, there is a much more of a relationship with space and a connection with the community in the Aboriginal community than there is with the population at large. So what's critical in terms of having success is they want training to happen in the community, but we also have need job opportunities in those communities. We can't go into an Aboriginal community and train people to be cooks and then say, now you've got to move 200 miles away to get work. It just doesn't work. We have to have a strategic approach to make sure that we're providing jobs in the communities as well, because there's a lot. There's just a much more tie with the community and the Aboriginal population, I find, than not. So that's something that I think we're really trying to work on, is that build that.
We've got 12,000 employees. We don't see a lot of women applying for the technician role. It's just the way it is. I'm not sure if it's just an industry thing, but you don't see a lot of women as technicians. If they did apply, obviously we'd give them a chance. If they do qualify and they meet the minimum specs, we do give them a chance, and we do train and we do everything else we can for them. But on the 12,000 employees across the country, we're in every major center, we're in most small locations as well, so we're an equal opportunity employer.
I just want to highlight one particular program. There are many good programs that are for women and in fact for Aboriginal women, but I just highlight one because it speaks to some of the things that the person made the question talked about. It's out of Edmonton, and it's Women Building Futures, and they do a really great job of preparing women. A lot of the women that come through their program are single moms, and they have, I think it's something like a 95% success rate in placing women and having them stay in employment. And they also recognize the point that was made that women are not necessarily going to want to go up to Fort McMurray or to somewhere else to work. They have their children to look after, etc. And their program deals with that. And a lot of the women are then placed in Edmonton And they're great tradespeople. There's some wonderful success stories about women who have then gone on to start their own construction companies. And they tell some terrific stories about, and one very simple illustration of, I suppose, success is that not only do they love what they're doing, but in the end, their salaries tripled once they became a tradesperson. So for a single mom, that's a pretty significant event to happen. So a good program. I'd suggest you look up Women Building Futures.
Yeah, I think just quickly at the forest product industry, we are one of the biggest Aboriginal employers in the country. I think we employ about 17% of our workforce is Aboriginal. And we got there, and we need to do a better job at a lot of partnerships and understanding the issues, and we're providing a lot of flexibility. I'll just give one program, for example, this job sharing, where we understand the single mothers and sometimes the travel, and they'll work 7 to 3, and then the other person will work the 3 to shift, so we can allow stuff like that. It's just an example of many, but I just wanted to raise it.
Sounds like one size doesn't fit all, but
Exactly.
lots of ideas that can be borrowed.
Jim Wright with the Ontario Construction Secretariat. A lot of the questions have been around what you're doing with the colleges, but I want to take it one step lower than that. How do you promote your industries to high school students? Because as we know, in the construction industry, if you ask a high school student, name me what do you need to build a building, they'll give you 4 trades because they don't know what a millwright is, a boilermaker is. They don't know about sheet metal, and you have to find ways of teaching them about that or getting the information out there. So how do you get your information to the high school student, and how do you get it to the high school student counselor? Because they're just as non-knowledgeable as anyone else.
Oh, yeah, I can start with that. How do we do it? The Greenest Workforce was a good example where we started this one, and we sent information across the country. And we realized that we need to do more. So now we actually have a partnership across the country, like Tree Canada, Forest Network, our mills, and we're trying to all work together to penetrate all the high schools with the same kind of information sharing. We do Enviroton. It's a skills competition for high schools kids to learn more about the forest industry. And we had some success, but we need to do more. And we're actually meeting, I think next month, national associations and everyone on how to do a better job.
There's a really great example, Jim, out of the Toronto District School Board of a career exploration program, and it lets the students go and explore different trades, because just as you said, they all know the sort of the top 4, but nobody knows the other possibilities. And so there's several partners involved in this. One is the college, and the college gives them credit for the time that they go and do some college training. They're getting training from various unions that are participating in the program, and they have, in fact, all of the major developers on a residential side from the Toronto area involved in this project, and the kids end up having they learn so much. It completely energizes these people, and the best way to get the message to young people is opportunities like that, where they can actually touch it and get on the job site. And not one of those kids ever misses Friday on the job site. They're there early in the morning, even if they have to take a 2-hour bus ride to get there. They never miss their Friday on the job site, and it's had an amazing impact. I get to hear from the parents of these kids and how it's changed their life, and they said that as a typical teenager they would never talk to them about anything about their day at home, but Fridays when they come home from the job site, the conversation is amazing. So there were parents that were completely turned around about the possibility of a career in construction. And you also mentioned the career counselors. My suggestion from our experience is that we focus on career teachers, because they're looking for material for their classrooms, and they have a much more, I think, active engagement around the whole career focus for the trades anyway. So co-op programs and that kind of thing are really the way to go.
I'll be the first to admit, we don't do enough in that area. We just started looking at one high school, a local high school, and they're going to give us 2 students next semester and a co-op program. So I think that's a great way to get them involved. It also helps the technicians at our location, motivates them because it gets them to talk about their job and promote their job. So that's a good thing. It builds pride in their job. I'm going to challenge my regional fleet managers across the country to get involved with high schools and start at that level. We need to be at that level.
I think we've got pretty good traction in the career programming the culinary side in high schools. I know in BC, I'm not sure about the rest of the country, but we have a lot of schools where they have student-run cafeterias. So the cafeteria programs, they can start in those programs as early as grade 9. So they might take a one block out of their class where they're actually in the cafeteria preparing food, and that's being served at lunch hour. And those programs are a feeder for our apprenticeship programs. We've got a very robust system that we have about 400 students a year that do their level 1 apprenticeship while they're in grade 11 or 12. So they're generally spending one semester full-time doing nothing but cooking. And then that's crediting them toward their level 1 training towards their apprenticeship. So we have a lot of that working, but I think we're still not doing enough about promoting things earlier on. I think the challenges we have is a lot of times we're waiting to grade 10 to talk to students about it, and people have already started their career path, their course planning and those kinds of things. We have to, I think our provincial government's doing a good job of making sure that we're trying to start awareness at an earlier age, and we're starting in the elementary schools. I know from with the Chefs Association and with some of our industry folks, we've got some programs where we actually would go out into grade 3 and grade 4 classrooms and teach kids how to grow vegetables and then how to cook them, so that they're getting a sense of where their food comes from and really that interest in food. And we're trying to get some of those tactile things in there so that people are showing interest in that as they go along. But I think we have to focus all the way that those opportunities are there, and those skills that are needed for them in terms of changing the mindset of people, and get this not thinking that once they enter high school their only mission is to prepare for university entrance, but being aware of where their skills and interests lie, and then making sure that they make that decision. I think we need to do more to work on that for sure.
Okay, we've got about, another question. We've got about 5 more minutes. People.
Hi, my name is Wendy Ains-Herschiger, and I'm with the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. I am a teacher by training myself, English actually, but I am here because I am really concerned about what's happening to tech programs and tech pre-service in terms of training tech teachers. We are, I think, the only province that allows skilled trade people to enter a teacher preparation program and become a fully trained teacher in the high schools. And recently they have decided, the provincial government has decided that they're going to double teacher preparation to 2 years. Right now, a tradesperson has to quit a job in order to go to teacher's college. Now that it's going to be 2 years, it's going to be that much more difficult. I think it is critical that we have skilled tradespeople in the classroom, in those tech programs, to get kids excited about the trades. And of course, yes, also the guidance counselors and the co-op teachers. And so I recently just reached out to the College of Trades and had a meeting with David Tabucci and said, yeah, let's help each other here, because we need to make sure that tech programs stay vibrant in high schools so that we can get these kids into these jobs down the road. So I guess I'm just looking for people here to support tech programs in schools, to support public education, and to let the government know that they have to do something about teacher preparation in terms of tech teachers. There are only 7 universities that provide tech teacher preparation right now, and of those, at least 3 have said we're not doing it anymore now that it's going to 2 years. It's going to be too expensive and we can't do it. And I fear for what's going to happen down the road. So, it's not a question necessarily for the panel, but an appeal to everybody here to have that on your radar and make sure the government and everybody knows that we have to support the schools as well.
Thank you, and I think that'll be great conversation over the next couple of days. I think I see one last question, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay. Actually, my question led to the gentleman that was here before, and it was about, I'm the lead educator, I guess, for our school board in the GTA region for the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. And we have many programs going on to promote the trades, and with the initiative, college, high school, co-op programs, all that. Our biggest problem, though, is promoting it to the parents. The kids will be interested, and we start, at our board, we've started as early as grade 6, getting the students interested in different trades. So I guess my question would be, what strategies could you suggest as industry leaders for us educators to get our parents on board with the, not looking just at going to university as being the success, the door to success?
Thank you. We'll get a couple of quick responses.
Okay, I'll just sort of reiterate from what I said earlier. I'll give you one example of how effective this can be. If you can get the kid to participate in something at school where they can get exposed to this, and if they then talk to their parents. There was one instance where the parents were both university educated and had academic professions, and they were appalled that their son wanted to go into the construction careers exploration program until he went into it, and they saw how it changed him overnight, basically, and they came and spoke about the fact that they now understand that there are other careers besides perhaps an academic pursuit. So I think there's got to be some real tangible evidence of the impact it can have on their son or daughter to help them get past that hurdle.
Just quickly for me, with better information for the parents, I think industry, we're totally interested in working with the school counselors to provide you with the information as well to the children, and when he goes home and he's excited, he can say, look, I met someone, I got some information, there's opportunities for me. And I think that we can do a better job at that as industry.
Can I ask you, do you have your kits in French? By chance, is your website in French? Your website, the green.
Oui, c'est la main d'œuvre la plus verte.
Okay, merci. Okay.
That is a tough one, because every parent has a vision for their child, whatever that is, right? It may not be the same vision that that child has. So I think, to your point, bringing more information back to the parent, understanding what that career choice is, it's an opportunity. At least have them have a chance at it. Probably is a better way of doing it.
Yeah, I think it's the messaging is really important, and my younger son actually did his first year of university and then came to me over the summer 2 weeks before he was supposed to go back and said, Dad, I want to build stuff. And I said, I've known that all along. I don't know why you went to your kinesiology program for a year instead of going into carpentry, which you really wanted to do. I didn't talk him out of either one. I let him choose his own path. But he's like, well, I kind of thought that's what you wanted me to do. I said, no, really, I don't care. So I think communication is really important, but I think also the perception of it is one thing that I just found was really interesting. I was in France in November, and I went to visit a trade school, 1,200 people that are only working on tourism and hospitality programs starting from at age 15. And the thing that I found my most interesting takeaway from my time looking at how their system works is their trade tickets are called technical baccalaureates. So baccalaureate professionnel or baccalaureate technical. So it's the same language they use for a bachelor's degree. You're doing a bachelor in economics, you're doing a professional bachelor's in cooking. It's the same language, and it puts it on the same level as those other programs that take 3 or 4 years to develop skill and get somebody a certification. So that's something that I thought was a really innovative way, because nobody looks at a technical, everybody's got a bachelor's degree as far as they're concerned. That's the language they use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're going to close off this session now for this afternoon, but I think we've set the stage for lots of conversation over the next couple of days, both within the sessions and certainly over our meals and in the hallways. So thank you very much, and thank you.